Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this installment of the Outlands RoyalTea. Our guest today is Countess Anna Mactaggart. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
You're welcome. How have you been doing?
I'm doing well, all things considered.
Right? It's been crazy. So let's just jump right in. So you were queen how many years ago? 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. And it was a winter reign.
Correct.
You were an Estrella queen.
One of the best parts.
One of the best parts. So tell me about your experience as Estrella queen. What was that like for you? What did you love about it?
It was honestly magical. That's the best way I could describe it. Estrella was the first large war that I ever attended. It is my favorite war, simply probably because of all of the history and love and things that I've shared over the years at that event. I got to do a lot of fun things as queen there. One of which that I'm very proud of was being able to be on 3 of the martial fields, both rapier, heavy, and on the archery field as well, which is something that has always been pretty near and dear to me, almost a legacy, you would say, as my father does the same thing as well. And I've never had any experience on the rapier field as queen or as anybody. I started when I became princess, actually training and became authorized and was able to fight at war. And I will tell you that one day I spent on that field holds some of the greatest memories that I have from that event. My team and I really brought it to everybody. We were able to show them that you can cross fields and some of those skills will translate. You know, some of those skills that I learned on the heavy field over so many years translated to the rapier field, and we were able to do some things that we're amazing. And I think everyone on that team will never forget them.
Awesome.
Opening the archery range was also a dream of mine. I've been an archer in the SCA since I was a little kid. That was the only thing that I was able to do as a teenager. And so that quickly became a true love of mine, and being able to open that range at Estrella with the other crowns was amazing.
Awesome. So you mentioned a legacy. So I want to talk a little bit about that. You're a second gen, right?
Not a true second gen. I was not born to people who already played. However, I did start playing with my parents when I was about 13, and it changed my life.
Yeah. So what advice?
I definitely think that being involved with that and my parents made for a better teenage years, for sure.
So what advice would you give a second gen? I mean, I consider you a second gen, right? You played as a child and, you still play as an adult. So what advice would you give a second gen? I know that sometimes that can be a hard road to hoe for a lot of second gens. So, what words of inspiration could you give them? I mean, you went from a second gen to a queen to you're a pelican, right?
Yes.
I mean,
and I was a pelican before I was a queen. That was one of the first things that I was like, oh, wow, I actually grew up into this, because when I was younger, things like court and awards and being anywhere near the top of the ladder was not on my goal list. I just wanted to come and play and have fun and do whatever activities I could and be in the wilderness and dress up in cool clothes that I helped make. And I think if I had any advice for second gens, it would be to remember any joy that you found from it. If you ever get frustrated, if you ever get tired, because we all do, this game can be taxing on all of us. It takes a lot of our time, a lot of our budget, a lot of our love. And if you ever feel frustrated, just remember all those times that were magical, because that was your childhood, that was your love, that was growing up in the Middle Ages, in your fairy tales and your dreams. And if you can remember that love, you can find it again.
Awesome. I love that. So you talked a lot about how much fun you had on the rapier field. Talk to us about who your champions were and who your team was.
Actually, one of your offers that you have given that we've waited so desperately long to come to fulfillment for the Master of Defense was one of my champions. And he he was a dubious champion because he was, not only was he my princess protector, and then he went on to be my protector of the Queen's heart, because I really cherished his service, and I thought that he projected not only to me, but to everybody else that feeling of the embodiment that the rapier community feels for our Queen. Until that day at Estrella, that we were having such a fantastic time, he actually came up and killed me from behind. He knew who I was, and it was a scenario where we were all together, and he was able to kill me from behind. And I was a little frustrated at the time. I was like, really? My own champion? But all in fair play, I think that that was a fantastic choice. I would not have anyone treat me with any kind of special treatment on the field other than trying harder to kill me.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Was being queen as fun as being land coordinator at Estrella? That's really
I was land coordinator for the Outlands for a couple of years, and I will tell you that there are bonuses to both. The first year that I did it, of course, now Duchess Lane was there to help me and guide me as she is in all matters on those Estrella land coordination and things that we can coordinate from the Aiden Belt and the Outlands. She was there to help me. She is one of my best friends, and we had a fantastic time. Let's just say we came up with unique ways that we could decorate different camps on their land, and being early on at Estrella and being able to help and set up are some of my fondest memories of that event as well. From building the battlefield, to laying out land, to helping serve food, to all the volunteers, to laying out roads, picking up trash. Anything that you can do that helps the war really just helps brighten your day too. You're staying active, you're staying focused, you're having fun, you're hanging out with people you never would have met otherwise. And those memories are definitely cherished in my mind.
awesome. So what is your favorite Outlands tradition? That's from Lord Cal, from Meridies.
Favorite? That is a hard one. I have a few that just stuck out in my mind. One is what we call the scaldings. We read them at coronation, generally before the new crown is brought forward to be coronated. They are basically a Viking verse that's been written by many, many people over the Outlands, and it's something that people remember each person by. And there's been different versions. There's long versions where every single reign you have something, and there's a shorter version where they just kind of have a verse that embodies you as a whole. And I think that those are an amazing way to remember all of the kings and queens that have made the Outlands what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many years before you were queen were you made a pelican?
Honestly, I don't know exactly. I would say probably 7.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. I think I've been a pelican for around 11, 12 years now, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's close-ish. My sister can tell you she keeps better track of it than I do.
And do you feel like being a member of a service order kind of prepared you for all of the order, all of the sacrifice and all of the service that you do as queen? Do you feel like that better enabled you to serve as queen?
I think in a way it did. Some of my service was from running events, which that maybe not so much, but I did do a lot of retinue. Before I was queen, I was lady in waiting many times. I've been a guard. I've been both baronial and kingdom herald, voice herald. I have been kingdom scribe. All of those things really helped prepare me for that role. Kingdom scribe, especially on a level with awards, it's immensely helpful to have done that beforehand. Being a lady in waiting, it gave me an idea of what some of my options were and responsibilities were at events. A lot of the traditions that are handed down from queen to queen that aren't necessarily always written down, I never would have learned those had I not been in those behind the scenes roles. And being both Black Fountain Pursuivant for Fontaine and Blue Iris Herald gave me an opportunity to be a part of court, to have a strong voice, to have that confidence to be able to step forward right away and have almost no nerves coming into those type of situations.
Awesome. What are some of your most prized possessions that you were gifted as queen?
Many of the gifts that I was given actually as Lady of the Rose, so really stepping down, mean a lot to me. Every Lady of the Rose who was able to give me something that day had a word or two, a note to pass along with it. And every time I wear those things, it reminds me of what we did, of who helped us, of just that friendly voice who was around sometimes. All those little things that help when you're doing a job that's as immense and important as me.
Awesome. Let's see. What's your favorite award? What was your favorite award to give when you were queen?
It's also a hard question. I think my most favorite one that I gave, or that we gave, and that I replay sometimes in my mind when I think of happy days, was the Walker of the Way that we gave to Mrs. Beatrice at Grand Court at Estrella. I do have a commanding voice and presence sometimes, and I was able to fill that hall and try to explain to Aidenvelt why our Walker of the Way is cherished like their Lion of Aidenvelt, and the look on her face and the surprise and the just grandeur of the moment. And not a better person I think we could have given it to. That one is definitely strong in my mind as one of my favorites.
Awesome. And would you guys want to serve as crown again? Is that something that you have a desire to do? Is that something that you're like, wow, that was such a huge job, I don't know?
Luckily, my husband had done it once before, and so he is kind enough to be prepared to keep going. And I think that we love the Outlands. We are both true Outlanders. He's more proud of being warlord than anything in the world. And that wouldn't be so if he didn't have such a deep love for this kingdom. And I do, and I think that we have something we could offer, and that we can, guide and help and inspire the Outlands again. And I would love to do that.
Awesome. Would you want to do another Estrella reign, or would you want to do a summer reign, do Battlemore?
It's hard because we love Estrella so much, and that's such a big push for us. And I actually do like the winter. I don't mind the feasts. I don't mind hanging out in halls with people. But I do also think that a summer reign would be fun. It's hard for us to choose. I think that with Jax having had such a long time between his first and second reigns, he understands, and so do I, that sometimes it's your day and sometimes it's not, and you just have to keep trying. And having only one reign to try for, doesn't matter to me. If it's my day on a summer reign, great. And if it's his day on a winter reign, great. I think either one of us would be happy to do either one.
Yeah. There's certainly differences, and I think having done it once is for sure a lot easier to say either would be amazing. It says now you can do both because of November Estrella.
That would be actually kind of cool too. I don't know.
Yeah. So, tell me about your best, like, when you felt the most like a queen. Like, I'm sure there's a moment. There's like one moment where I'm like, wow, I really am the queen. Do you have a moment like that or an experience like that?
I think there were several experiences like that. The first one being the actual coronation, when Jax placed the crown on my head and we stood up, and that was when we had the scaldings read in our ceremony. And just standing there and listening to that lineage, looking out at people I've known since I was a child.
Yeah.
That moment to me definitely felt like, wow, this is real. This is happening.
Yeah. That's awesome. And where was your coronation?
In Naroon Kabiran, a shire in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Okay.
Which is also where I started playing as a kid. Even though we lived in Fontaine, which is about 8 hours north, the people who introduced us to the SCA lived down in Naroon. And that is where we went to our first couple of events. For the first few years that I was in the SCA as a moody teenager, that's the only place I wanted to go. I was like, that's where my friends are. I want to go down there. These guys are okay, but... So to have my coronation there and to have that be where that elevation happened was pretty amazing for me.
I bet. That's cool. That's super cool. So what role did you have your parents play in your reign? Since you are-
My father was pretty much my everything. He was the behind the scenes guy that nobody ever knew was there. The title that we gave him was Pater Familia, which is Roman for basically like head of the family. You know, that was the title that they would give in those times. And he was the guy I called every day when I was like, oh my gosh, I need to tell you this, or hey, I'm having trouble deciding between these two things. You know, help me. He was that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. He was basically my Jiminy Cricket. He was the guy who sat there and was my conscience and helped me work through anything that I needed to. And then my mom, Mary, she was my inspiration. She was the premier Baroness of Fontaine, and she was so fantastic at it that when I knew that I was going to be queen, I knew that she was one of the people I wanted to be like. I wanted to be that hardworking woman who showed up in dirty clothes to be talked to by the crown because I'd been helping the children with their activities throughout the day. I wanted to be the grace and the presence that she had during her time. And so not only was she my confidant when she needed to be, but she was truly one of my big pieces of inspiration.
That's awesome. That's so amazing to have a set of parents that, you know, can just inspire you to such greatness. That's so cool. So Jax made a comment about the decorations for coronation. So now I'm curious.
I'm sorry, tell me, what was that one more time?
I said Jax made a comment about the decorations for coronation. So now I'm curious.
They were amazing. Naroon went all out, and the entire hall was covered. Like, there wasn't a mundane thing left in sight, and there was a most beautiful scribal competition that they had laid out, scrolls, blank scrolls that had been commissioned. I believe that Mistress Monica did that at the time to try to drum up some blank scrolls for the reign, but also just to showcase the scribe arts for this kingdom. You know, unfortunately we get 2 minutes in court, if that. And it's something that so much of you goes into that it's a beautiful thing to be able to showcase those artisans. And then the hall that they did in Naroon, everything was just immaculate. It was gorgeous, vaulted ceilings, and they really went all out for us, and I can't ever thank them enough for that.
And Jack said stained glass window dressings.
From the other room. That hall that I was talking about where the feast was, they had covered the windows, and many of the other windows in the building with stained glass decorations, and it just lended a beautiful ambiance, beautiful color. You know, there was nowhere you looked that you didn't feel like you were not in this time and that you were somewhere else and that you were in a medieval setting.
That's awesome. That sounds absolutely incredible. Very cool. What was your favorite event that you went to as queen besides Estrella?
Fontaine 12th night was a big one. Being home and being able to fight with all my friends there, recognize some of the people. We were able to recognize a young man with a stag's heart there named Josh, who has some developmental disabilities, and he does everything in his power to be a part of the SCA, to feel that you walk in a room and he just lights up and wants to give you a hug and is just a happy person who does everything to his ability to contribute to the society, and we were able to recognize that. And that's something that I remember because I think that's important, to be able to understand everybody's level and make them feel like this SCA is here for them as much as they are here for it.
Awesome. Is there something in your reign that you wish you could do over or do differently? And that's from Lord Cal from Radia's.
I think there's always something in everyone's reign that they feel like they could do differently or could have done better. And that's how we learn and how we grow as people, and not just to take to the next reign, but to carry on as a peer, to carry on as a royal peer, to carry on as just a member of the society. Those lessons teach us what can be important to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now that you've been crowned and you are a peer, do you find it harder to relax and enjoy events as Anna?
No, I don't think so, because I think that in my path, growing up and becoming a peer, I did so as myself. I didn't do it to become something. I did it because those things were fun to me and made me enjoy my game. So continuing to do some of them still makes it fun for me, and still makes my events go by. If I just sit there and do nothing, I get restless sometimes, and it's important to me to stay busy. So I don't think that those added inherent responsibilities really bothered me, because it was something I would have done anyway.
Nice. As a heavy fighter, was it hard for you to have a heavy champion?
No,
not
at all.
The champion
is a fantastic champion, and he was there for me on the field when I needed him, but was also able to give me that space to work and to fight and to not feel crowded. I did not feel in any way bad about having a heavy champion as a heavy fighter. I actually just felt like I had a team. I was very proud of my team, between my champion and my heavy fighters that were on the retinue. All encouraged to fight with me if they wanted to. We had a great time.
That's awesome. And who was your heavy champion? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Duke Sirith.
Sirith, okay. Awesome. Let's see. Tell us about. Do you enjoy going to Queen's Teas?
Not particularly. I've been to some fun ones and not so fun ones over the years. I was fortunate enough to go to several as lady in waiting to other queens, so I had a bit too, of experience to know what I was walking into. So I was able to, for mine, kind of meld it with Aidenvelt's because it wasn't something that I felt appealed to the people, which is more what I cared about. I wanted my time to go hanging out with them, being on the field, doing all of these things. And while I went and I had a fantastic time, we were able to watch the Rose Cancer tourney during our Queen's Tea, and it was a beautiful, beautiful time. But I like to be more productive. So to be able to do something where I'm volunteering or fighting or even just spending time with my populace, that was more important to me than going to a queen's.
Did you find it hard to kind of step back and just be in that role as queen, being a doer and a pelican, and then having to kind of take that step back and be like, okay, I need to play the part, right? Or not really play the part, but you need to step into that role. And being a pelican, was that a difficult transition for you?
Sometimes. For me, it's hard not to help with the carrying and the toting and the packing and all of that thing. We actually had a system on my retinue where everybody would bring stuff to the trailer, and then I was the only one who was allowed to pack the trailer. That's my own personal kind of weirdness, but it helped. The other thing is I've always believed that there's a reverse side of chivalry, and this is from growing up in the SCA. When I was young, everybody wants you to help. They want you to carry stuff. They want you to tote stuff. And then when you start to become a woman, they don't want you to carry stuff anymore. They want to carry it for you. And that can be a really hard transition to make, especially when you're a strong-willed person like I am. You want to still carry that stuff, and that took me a little while to learn. And I always think that we should remember the reverse side of chivalry. They can only be chivalrous if we let them. If we don't let them, they can't have that for themselves as well. So by being that strong-willed person who's like, no, I'm going to carry it for myself, they don't have that fun part of their game too. So you have to learn, even if it's hard sometimes, to allow that and to say, yes, thank you, please carry this for me, and to walk and talk with them and enjoy their company while they carry your things. Mm-hmm. And this is as important as being able to do stuff. So while it was hard, I think it's an important thing to be able to do.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to talk for a second about your coronation garb. You did a lot of the work on that, right?
I did all of it.
You did all of it. Okay. Amazing.
Who's our mistress of the robes, was able to help with some of the production, and I do believe she helped me put the panels actually on, the green panels on by sewing them. But I did the design, I cut everything out, and then I did the stamping as well, and stenciling. They weren't all stamps because I'm not so good at that.
So when you guys won, were you like, did you already know what you wanted, or did it just kind of come to you, or how did that whole, I mean, it was just so beautifully done, and it was striking, and it was amazing, and it was beautiful to see. And I was just curious, like, how you got there. Did you know? Did you just kind of?
Some were dreams that I thought of over the years. Every time someone would fight for me in a crown, you think about, oh God, what's going to happen if we actually win? And sometimes I've talked with that about people, and sometimes I've just brainstormed in my head. But so there are those things that you think about over the years, and then some things we'd drive home and talk about it, and would just come to us and be like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then some things naturally fell into place. We were very fortunate, and I think we had a blessed reign, and it was everything I could have hoped.
Yeah. I mean, those were just beautiful. And honestly, like, you guys have made being crowned look super easy.
Thank you. It's never easy for anyone, I don't think. I think that there are internal struggles and things that go in behind the scenes that nobody ever knows about. And to hear that still nobody knows about those, and that we were able to just portray that love that we feel for this kingdom and help everyone enjoy these events, because that's what it's about. We go there to have fun. We do this on our time off. We put all our love and energy and money and time. And what we want to do is be inspired and have fun when we go. And so that was what we really tried to do, was help that happen for as many people as we could.
Yeah, well, it definitely came through that way. I mean, like I said, you guys' reign was so much fun. And I don't know, I mean, I wasn't new to the Outlands, honestly. Like, I had been here a couple of years when you guys reigned, but you guys always looked like perfectly put together, and everything always looked super intentional, and your love of the kingdom really always came out in everything that you guys did. So that was really cool to see.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What else? What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about, like, do you have anything that you wanted to share about being queen?
I mean, honestly, you hit some of the points that I thought of, and I was like, what happens if she asks these questions? So many of the things I thought about talking about, we've covered. I really couldn't have done it without everybody who helped us. And I know that Jacksonville's the same way. There was a great group of people behind us, whether they were new friends or old, who helped us and also helped us feel those roles. You know, there was a moment when I know Duke Sirith giving me the courtesies made me feel like I earned it, like I was there, and it gave me purpose, it gave me confidence, it helped me, and he wasn't the only one, it helped me get out there and be that person in front of everyone. And so a lot of it had to do with us and who we are, but a lot of it also had to do with everyone who helped us.
And I know you guys come from a very a large household, and how much of a balancing act is that to, you know, preserve your household, but then you have so many people, I'm sure, that wanted to be a part of everything. Like, was that a hard balance for you?
Luckily, the household that we come from is used to having crowns within the household, and they're used to being able to do stuff and take time off. And that was something we stressed was, if you want to, if that's your desire, please come help us. But if you don't, that's okay. And we're not going to be upset, and we're not going to take it personally. We understand that sometimes it's just not the right time to help on a retinue. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of yourself to somebody else, many times without any kind of recognition for those efforts. So we made it very, very clear that if you wanted to help, that was great. And if you didn't, that was okay too. And I think that made it easier. A lot of our household, all of our households was very supportive all the time. There were a lot that did help us. And there were a lot who, you know, or some who said, you know what, it's not a good time for me. And that's okay. And that allows everybody to stay friends and stay family, because really, we did that for 6 months. And it was a fantastic time. But every other day that I camp in an event, I'm going to be with my household. So it's important for me that they don't feel like they weren't appreciated as well.
Awesome. This one from Duchess Slane. Who do you like better, Jackson?
Well, probably Slane. And maybe that's partially because I miss her so much because COVID. But I love my husband, and I wouldn't have been queen without him. And I can't thank him enough for the opportunity and the inspiration he gave me to be able to be an awesome queen for the Outlands.
So when you're at Crown Tourney and the final blow is struck, were you like, oh shit? Yeah!
It was a little bit of disbelief. Like, I covered my face because I wasn't sure what my face was going to say. At first, it was almost like, is this even really happening? And, you know, as a little girl, when you come up through the SCA, you look at the queens and you watch them and you're amazed by them. And then all of a sudden, you grow up and there you are. And you're, oh. I just wanted to do justice to all those queens who were before me that I looked up to, that I thought were amazing, and I wanted to be that for other people who wanted to be inspired.
And do you feel like that put extra pressure on you being a second gen and like you had a lot to live up to, or were you just like, I'm going to do my best to, make this my own? Or, I mean, did you
I felt like I was going to do the best to make it my own.
Mm-hmm.
I felt pressure. I was a little nervous. Partially, I wanted to do good for Catherine, who's not here anymore, and I didn't have that behind for her to be able to say, you did good. So now I just have to hope that she is. She thinks that I did good. That, I think, put some pressure on me. And that's my own self. That's my own projections internally saying, hey, you can be strong-willed, you can be a fighter, you can try to inspire as many people as you can be happy and positive and get out there, and no matter what you're feeling, just be this embodiment of grace and beauty for the Outlands.
Nice. This one is from Lady Relina, and it says, who do you rely on when you don't know the person who is receiving an award?
A lot of times you rely on the award recommendations that are put into the kingdom system. Those are the people who know that person and can tell you all of the great work that they've been doing. Now in the age of technology, you can do some other things to look them up to know, if they've held offices, if they've been at all these events and fighter practices. Many times you can see that on their profiles. So there are some things you can do, but most of it's word of mouth. Most of it is that person who writes in that award recommendation to tell you how awesome someone else is. And we could use so much more of that from everyone all the time. We all know someone who's doing an awesome job, and sometimes the crown does it, and all we have to do is take a couple minutes out of our day and go and write that award recommendation, and that's how you help recognize the people in this kingdom who are doing such a great job.
Yeah, so for 1 second, I want to kind of step away from our interview and talk about the award recommendation. It is so critical as Crown to have those award recommendations in there. And if you are at home and you feel like, man, my friends aren't being recognized, you need to put in an award recommendation, because that not only does that help the current crown, if for some reason technology happens and whatever, and that crown doesn't see it, the next crown will. So the award recommendation database is such an important tool that crowns rely on, right? That if there's not an award recommendation in there, it makes the job 10 times harder, right? Because what do you do if there's no award recommendations in there? So get out there and write those award recommendations. Help your crown, help recognize, because really that's how it works, right? That's the piece of the puzzle that people are like, oh, how does this even happen? That's how it happens, is the award recommendations that you write help the crown recognize the people. Because I mean, we say it all the time, we can't be everywhere. We don't see everything. We don't hear everything, but we are able to look into that database and use that tool. It can be such a lifesaver, because you want to give out awards, right? I mean, that's what you want to do. I mean, that's, to me, that's the most fun part. Like everyone says, oh, what's it like being queen during the plague? It's not the fun part, which is going and recognizing people who are doing great things, right? So please, 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 please fill out the award recommendation. It stays in the database. It can be seen by multiple crowns over multiple reigns. Please do it. It makes our job so much easier.
And it's essential. There is no one can know everyone. It's so hard. And we all spend so much time doing as much as we can at getting to know people within the SCA. But it's impossible, especially when so many people do things behind the scenes that we never see that make things run smoothly. Yes. It's essential that everyone write those recommendations so that the crown can help to recognize people who deserve it.
And His Grace Jack says, award recommendations are so insightful in a kingdom as large as ours. And that really just hits the nail right on the head. Like, we are geographically a very large kingdom, and it's impossible to be everywhere. And as you said, humble service is not always right in your face. It's behind the scenes. It's the person doing dishes. It's the person making sure that the trash isn't overflowing. Like, there's so many working pieces to making events amazing that, that's my little soapbox for a second.
And it wasn't when you mentioned
It's a hard thing, and so do it. Help the crown, help your friends get word fame, right? Because word fame is really what we're talking about. A lot of the nights and stuff do Word Fame Wednesday. This is Word Fame Wednesday, but also with an award. So yeah, award recommendations are crazy. What was the most impactful part of your rose ceremony? So I know yours was a little bit different than what I've seen.
So I would have to say that it was probably the presentation of a coat.
Yeah.
And that was something that I asked for. When I was made a pelican, the coat that I requested to be made, I asked of Duchess Catherine, and at the time she was ill and was unable to complete a true pelican coat for me, although she did make me a coat that is absolutely gorgeous. It just wasn't, it didn't have a pelican on it. It wasn't quite a peerage coat. Although she did everything she could to make it special at the time. So when I realized that I was going to be able to have this other peerage ceremony, I asked my mom Mary to make me a Lady of the Rose / pelican coat, so that could be presented at that time, because I think it's a cool part of the ceremony. And we were able to honor Duchess Catherine in the design. The pattern that Mary took the coat off of was from the coat that Catherine made me. And Mary was able to include quite a few people in the making of the coat itself. Mistress Mary from up north was able to do the patches that went on, that were rose patches, and other people were able to contribute, and it is a gorgeous, stunning piece of work. And to have that put on me at that moment made it feel even more special as a Lady of the Rose. And it kind of tied the two things together for me personally to have that achievement. So that was very cool.
I'm super glad you brought up the coat, because that's a tradition in the mid-realm where I came from, is you're always presented a cloak or a coat or something. And so that was one of the things that I was like, oh, we don't do that here. That's odd that we don't do that here. And then you did it, and I was like, okay, so you can do that here. Yeah. I love that part of the ceremony. I love that coat and that presentation and the wrapping you and I think that that's super cool. And I love that you were able to just kind of, again, make it your own, right?
And it was very neat. As that ended and I was able to leave, that was when the roses met me and were able to give me all the gifts. And it made it a big ceremony for me and really made it feel like I was coming into part of I don't want to say sisterhood because I don't want to generalize it, but that kind of feeling of camaraderie and those people who have been a consort in that way. It felt very special.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I super loved that. It was fun too, because when we were going over the ceremony, I'm like, and we were getting all this stuff ready, I'm like, okay, is there going to be a coat? And they're like, no, we don't do that in the Outlands. I'm like, okay. And then it started, and I was like, wait, there's a coat.
It was something that they were kind enough to be able to humor me for, because it's not generally a thing.
Yeah.
But they were kind enough to let me do it, and it did make it super special. I think it's an awesome thing. Usually in the Outlands, if there is a coat presented, it's generally a duchy coat. So that was a new thing for Countess to get, but I thought it was appropriate and made it awesome for me. So I enjoyed it.
and again, I think it's important to like make it your own, right? Like, yeah, we want to respect the traditions and, you know, honor those traditions, but I think that making it your own and doing something really special that means so much to you, is super cool too. And like I said, it was great to see. I loved seeing it. I was so excited because again, I was like, we don't do that. Yeah, we're doing it. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Keep you on your toes occasionally.
Okay, here's another question. This one's from Sir Valora. It says, being a fighter, how did you balance the fighting with the more graceful side of being queen? Do you feel more pressure to fight or to not fight to fulfill your idea of a queen?
That's a hard question. I felt more pressure not to fight. There were times that I wanted to fight and I felt like my responsibilities were elsewhere. Battlemore, when we were Prince and Princess, is a great example. The Sword and Shield tournament was going on. I even put my armor on in the morning, knowing that I wasn't going to fight until the melees, and except maybe a few pickups, which I was able to do. But sitting there in my armor all day, just wanting to fight, but knowing that it was very important in my mind to witness that tournament in as much of its entirety as I could, kept me there a long time. In fact, by the time I made it to the melee field, they were on their last battle. And that was a big bummer at first. I was like, oh man, all I wanted to do was fight all day, watching all this fighting and the other things took me from that. Mm-hmm. But what I was able to take away from that in the long run was it's important as queen. It's not just about you anymore, you know, and that's really what you got to remember is it's about the populace. And if it's important for those consorts to take inspiration from you, who are now one of the lead consorts, basically, that's important, just as important as my desire to go out there and fight. When at Estrella, I normally fight every melee scenario day. And I took a day out to go play with the rapier field. And in the morning, I was kind of sad. I was looking forward to hanging out with my friends and playing on the rapier field, but at the same time, for a decade, I've been going to the heavy field. So it was a little different to don that other armor and to go out with a different group of people into a different world, experience that. But I wouldn't take that day away. And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't given that sacrifice. So while in the morning I was a little sad, by the end of the day, I was so pumped and so excited and so jazzed by what we had done that any shred of that little sadness was pretty much gone.
And I think that you hit the nail on the head about what being a peer is. It's not about you anymore. It's about what does the populace need and what is, you know, how can I serve the kingdom? And that's as important as the queen or as a pelican or as a master of defense or as a knight. I mean, that really speaks to the heart of what being a peer is, right? It's serving something greater than yourself. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's a perfect fit because I think that that's one of the conversations that we often have with new peers, right? Like, hey, it's not about you anymore. And that's the counsel you give, right? It's not about you anymore. It's about serving. It's about, and I think that being the queen is no different, right? You're a royal peer.
I think it's even more so. As a peer, you can still do the things you love. That's what got you to that peerage in the first place. Being a queen, sometimes you have to step outside of your comfort zone in your box and do things that you wouldn't normally do in an event because those people need as much your support as somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to ask you about your camp because your guys' camp always looks so cool. And like I said, you guys always look very put together and very intentional and very like, how many years in the making was your camp? Like people that are striving for that level of, you know, put togetherness and cohesiveness and just the wow factor. Like, has your camp like always been something in the making? Was that something that you really stepped up because you were crowned?
I think it's a continual process for everybody. We go through these ebbs and flows of, I need to bring more stuff, I need to bring less stuff, and finding that middle ground of mundanity to period and making your camp hospitable, but making it manageable for yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, household, we worked on it for years. Countess Lane and the Honorable Lady Cassidy have done such a great job organizing and making sure that our household sets up to where it benefits everybody and looks orderly and in rows, because we like that, because, we're Roman and stuff. Rows.
Right.
But it does lend that I am comforted by things that are orderly. So being in a camp that's like that helps. As far as for ourselves, Duchess Catherine was a great inspiration over the years in hospitality, in setting stuff up, in bringing an extra thing or two just so that we had them for the camp, whether it be a shade or a fire pit or whatever. And also organizing that ahead of time. If you can't be the one to bring everything, because sometimes that's not feasible for us, we have people who live in Inkville and they only have to drive 20 minutes. Maybe they can bring the fire pit or that kind of thing, and organizing those people to make a camp comfortable, bringing the tiki torches, putting in that extra effort so when you walk in, it's not dark. Little things like that really go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said, your guys' camp is spectacular, and definitely something for a lot of inspiration for a lot of people that, would love to have something as grand as that.
I think a good place to start can always be banners too. And there are different styles of banners that can be made for people who can sew or people who can paint, whatever your skill sets are. That really will actually help brighten up your camp in such a small way. And tell everybody right where you are too. And it's such a great way to be able to display your heraldry, have pride in yourself, in your camp, in the people around you. That's a great way to start out sprucing things up.
For sure. Okay, so we only have about 5 minutes left. So I want to talk about, what advice would you give a brand new princess?
Have fun and enjoy yourself, but remember it's not about you. And I can't stress that enough. You get to do all these fun things, and you get to be this person that people can look up to and will remember for years to come, no matter how their SEA journey takes them. Some of those people will always remember you, but they'll remember you because you thought of them, not because you were there for yourself.
Yeah. And what advice would you give somebody who's like a first-time consort in crown tourney?
It's okay to be nervous, and it's okay to be scared. Keep your emotions as controlled as you can, not only for yourself, but for your consort. It's hard for them to look over and see you upset. So if you can keep that composure, even if you feel like they weren't treated honorably, that is what they need you to.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? So obviously, the most important role is providing inspiration, but as a consort, what do you derive the most joy from?
I think, win or lose, it's also taking care of my fighter, and however that is for them. And it's different for everyone, whether it's bringing them water and food, or leaving them alone, or finding their guy buddy and being like, hey, maybe you should go just chat, giving them whatever it is that they need to be comfortable and to help them relax, because you are there to be their inspiration and you are there to support them.
Yeah, that's, being a consort, I think, is such a great, mutually beneficial, it's such a give-take relationship, right? Because you're giving all of your love, you're giving all of your support, and you're feeding off of their accomplishments, but also helping them achieve the thing that they're wanting to achieve. So it's such a special relationship that you don't really think about all that goes into it. So sometimes it's kind of hard to put words to what that relationship means, and the special bond that you have. And but again, Nailed it. Perfect description of what it is. And then keeping your face under control.
And that can be harder than it sounds, honestly. Sometimes you see blows and you're not the one fighting and you don't understand the calibration or what's going on out there, and you can see stuff, and trying not to flinch, trying not to read in any way helps. You know, it helps your fighter, it helps you, it helps those around you. If that other fighter is the person who wins the day, you don't want that to be any ill will about the fight that happened before. You just want to make sure that you're there, and when your fighter looks over, they see your joy in them, not your disappointment in anything else.
Right. I think one of the coolest moments was when like all of the roses gather for the finals, and so you're just surrounded by all of these amazing women, and you feel so supported, and so like no matter what happens, and that's truly one of those like no matter what happens, everybody's here to support those consorts in that last bout. And it's such a cool thing that the Ladies of the Rose do. I just love that. I love the Ladies of the Rose. I think that that's such an amazing group of women so far.
It's a great show of support when you also feel helpless.
Yeah.
Because as a consort, you really do feel helpless at times. You have no control over what's going on that field. And to have those women around you saying, we support you no matter what, helps alleviate some of that nervousness and tension that you can feel.
Yeah, for sure. So it's such a cool group. Like I said, amazing people that, you know, just, they don't even, I mean, they know, but people don't even know how much that love and support like is such a comfort in those moments. So I can't wait to be part of that group and, you know, be part of that role in that support and that love. So,
and we will be happy to have you join us when this is all finally over.
Finally. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I loved having you on. It was a joy to see your face. You're always a joy to talk with. You're always so much fun. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Majesty, and for this opportunity to be able to voice my opinions and to hopefully guide some people, and maybe they can become consorts and someday be a queen of their own.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, everybody. Please join His Majesty in 2 weeks. He will be hosting another Duke of the Outlands, Duke Hogarden. Yes. And then in 2 weeks after that, I will be back and we will be chatting with Duchess Conliac. So we're kind of alternating on the ladies. We're doing Countess, Duchess, Countess, Duchess. So we have Duchess Conliac, I think, is next up. So please join us for our next installment of Outlands Royalty. And until then, have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.